I am Johnny Maney from Johnny's Restaurant and Takeaway, Wargasil, Cork, Ireland. We are delighted to sponsor the Sandy Kelly's Life and Time show.
Hot Country presents the life and times of Irish country music legend Sandy Kelly.
Hello, my name is Eilish O'Sullivan and you're very welcome to part 2 of our 3-show series of the life and times of Sandy Kelly. Sit back and relax and enjoy some more musical journeys and stories of the wonderful Sandy Kelly.
How did you actually meet Johnny Cash and June Carter and become so friendly?
Well, just prior, as you know, Kieran Kavanagh passed away recently.
Right.
And Kieran was my manager after Kevin McCooey. And he was bringing Waylon Jennings to Ireland. And it was my first big support tour. So I did support to Waylon Jennings in Ireland. And beknownst to me, when Waylon went back to Nashville, he knew that Johnny was coming to Ireland. And he said, look out for a little girl called Sandy Kelly when you're there.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Right.
And so I was at a pirate station in Cavan, knocked on the door, asked them to play Crazy. This is my new record. I'm Sandy Kelly. And the disc jockey invited me in. And went in and they played Crazy and the phone rang. And when the interview was over, and I could see the guy that interviewed me answering the phone, and he looked a bit hesitant, and he came to me. He said, there's a guy with an American accent wants to talk to you. Now I'm in Cavan at a pirate station. I don't know anybody who's going to have an American accent. So this voice says, hello, this is Johnny Cash, is that Sandy Kelly? And I said, no, it's Dolly Parton. Called the other one because I thought it was somebody winding me up.
Right.
And he said, no, it really is Johnny Cash. June and I just heard your interview and we're in Omagh tonight and we'd like you to come along. We loved listening to your story. I went to Omagh that night. He invited me up on stage to sing 4 songs with him and the band. And after the show invited me to Nashville. Went to Nashville a month later, 5-6 weeks later. He was having a party at the house.
Yeah.
So I walked through the door as a marquee on the tennis court outside his house. And at every table, when I went in looking around that room, was the faces of people on the fronts of albums in my house in Sligo. It was Rodney Crowell,
right.
You know, Roseanne Cash, Dottie West, everybody, Janie Frick, everybody that I admired.
Right.
And when I went in and he asked me up to sing in front of everybody. He was singing when I went in on a little stage and he asked me up to sing, and then afterwards he asked us to wait behind afterwards, and I didn't know what to say because I'd bought 4 tickets for the Opry and I'd never been to the Opry and I couldn't do both, but thank God I waited. And my family and I, my sister and my son Willie and Mike went into the house. June made coffee. Johnny was sitting in the rocking chair and he played Woodcarver for me and asked me would I record it with him. And would you believe it, when I went back just last year to finish my album in Cash Cabin, with his son and my son, I gravitated towards a rocking chair that was in the corner and sat down. And when I looked at the arm of the rocking chair, JC was carved out in it. And it said the man in white, not the man in black. And I said to John Carter, his son, is this your dad's rocking chair? And he said, yeah. And I said, is this the rocking chair that was in your kitchen in the house? And he said, yeah. So it had come
full circle around.
Yeah.
Great story. Have you ever passed on a song only to find it become a hit for somebody else?
Isle of Tears, which I shall regret.
Why did you pass on it?
Actually, it wasn't me, it was the record company. I loved it. Brendan Graham sent it to me. And God help Brendan Graham, I don't know how many songs he sent me. He sent me that song, I loved it. But the record company didn't see it as something that would suit me at that time. Passed on it. And became a huge hit. And the other song I passed on, I didn't personally, my record company did, was Feet of a Dancer. Charlie McGettigan wrote. He sent it to me because when he wrote that song, he had my daughter Barbara in mind. I hope you have the feet of a dancer, you know, wishing every good wish for my daughter. And they didn't let me record that. And it became a huge hit for Maura O'Connell.
Briefly tell us about the Sandy Kelly TV series.
That there again, that conveyor belt that happened after I recorded Crazy, and meeting Johnny Cash because of that. RT decided to give me my own series, which back then, you know, the budgets were huge. So we had like a 26-piece studio band with a segment with the concert orchestra every Sunday. The guests were phenomenal. I got to sing with some of my heroes, people like Leo Sayer, Charlie Pride, Johnny Cash. We recorded his segment at Margery Castle in Sligo. The Drifters, everybody. Helen Shapiro, everybody. And it was just, there was choreography, there was, in the first series we did a segment every week to Patsy Cline, which had the Jordanaires. The next series we did Hank Williams. So it was a great experience.
And tell me about Sandy Kelly and Branson, Missouri.
Well, that started off great but didn't end up so great. I had a phone call I had a phone call to Cork, to the country club. Was that in Mountain National?
That's right, yeah.
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 And I was doing Women's Little Christmas.
All right.
And after the show, a manager, a big-time manager in New York, rang me. He had already flown over to see my TV series. But when I met him, he was managing, he had discovered Dolly Parton. He was managing, oh God, what do you call the man who had Cowboy Cattle Call. Slim Whitman, was it? No. No. He was the biggest seller next to Frank Sinatra.
That's right, yeah.
I can't think of his name. Anyway, he was his manager at the time. And rang me and came over to see me in Dublin and wanted to sign me to go to America, but I just didn't like him. My gut feeling wasn't good about him. But I was going through a bad time here, financially. My career couldn't have been better. I probably was the #1 female singer at the time. But financially, it was very bad. It wasn't working well. And so I got this call to Cork Country Club, and it was an offer to go to work with Johnny Cash in America, in Branson, Missouri. But the call came through the manager that I didn't like. All right. And he said, don't tell your Irish manager, which was Kieran Kavanagh at the time, and don't ring Johnny Cash, and don't ring Lou Robin, don't ring anybody. This has to be done in 2 weeks, and nobody can know about it. And his excuse for not ringing Johnny Cash at the time was that, which was believable to me at the time, is that there were so many Carter Cashes. You know, Johnny and June had so many children, and their husbands and wives and whatever in the business, that why would Johnny Cash ring a girl in Ireland to come and do the show in Branson? Right. It would have caused ill feeling within the family, which I believed. So I didn't call Johnny Cash, wish I had. And I did go to see Kieran Kavanagh. I didn't feel that that was right, because I was under contract to Kieran. So I went to talk to Kieran. Kieran was very upset about it. And went to Branson. We rehearsed with a phenomenal band. It was going to be a great show. We went out on the road to promote it was called Cash Country. And we went out on the road to promote it. Found myself sharing stages with Loretta Lynn, Andy Williams, Merle Haggard, all the people that owned all the other theatres. Everybody went out and did conventions, for buses, you know, for the buses to come to their theatre. And then the next thing, it went from, I noticed there was like 100 people working building this theatre down to maybe 25 people building this theatre. And then I turned up one day for rehearsal and there was like 2 people building this theatre. And it transpired that the investors went into liquidation. It was no reflection on Johnny Cash. He was the name. They were paying him to use his name. So he would have been in the same situation as me, if you like. Right. Where all of a sudden he'd cancelled all this work, as I did, in his case a lot more, and went overnight into liquidation. And my manager at the time from New York had very, very bad links with very bad people, and I was threatened. You know, my life was threatened. I was offered other jobs in Branson. He threatened them if they hired me, and that was 10 years out of my life.
My God. That was tough going.
It was 10 years. What saved me was I went into the Patsy Cline musical in England and ended up in the West End.
And tell us about the Patsy Cline musical and your connection there with Patsy Cline, of course, and the
Well, that was because of Shay
you were-
Hennessy
Yeah.
making me record Crazy, you know.
Yeah.
And I never thought it would have the success that it did. But Crazy was such a huge record for me that we decided to do the one-woman show, which I did.
That's right.
On her life. And because I already knew her family, I wasn't going to meet her husband as a clone, if you like, or a want-to-be Patsy Cline. I already knew them, and I already knew her musicians and my producer and whatever. So I was able to go back to Nashville and research the woman.
Right.
Through her family and
Yes.
the people who loved her. George Hamilton IV, I asked to narrate the show for the West End, and he toured with her. So I got to know her from the people who worked with her, not from a book, you know. So the more I knew about her, the more I realised how fortunate I was to have this opportunity. So in a way, I then felt like I owed her, and I still do, that I had to do my best all of the time for Patsy Cline because of what she done for me.
Right.
You know, she introduced me to all those people. And that was, starring in a West End musical was never on a list of anything I was going to do. And it was I think even since, there was never a country musical in the West End in London.
That's right.
Never.
Tell me, Sandy, any crazy fan moment or anything like that?
You know, there used to be a few, not so much now, you know, because, you know,
Tell us about
they've moved on to bigger and better people. But going back, I suppose, when I had the TV series and all that, I used to get very strange letters. They used to go through them in RTE and try to weed out the ones that were very strange, you know.
Right.
But there was one man that used to write to me constantly from Longford. I hope he's not watching this programme. And I always knew it was him because he always put black crosses, crucifixes,
Right.
across the envelope, front and back. And he told me there was 3 women in his life: his mother, the Blessed Virgin, and me.
Right.
So, I mean, nowadays that would be called stalking, but back then you didn't, you know. And then I had this other lady who was a fan, a young girl. She was like, I'd say in her early 20s. And, you know, in country music, especially back then, you were very accessible. You spend time talking to people. I used to write 300 letters a week to people on a Monday night, my night off. You didn't have Facebook, so you couldn't just send a quick message. And so this girl turned up at my house in Plaster of Paris.
Right.
And she had broken her leg, and her family were abusing her and all sorts of stuff that turned out to be totally... And then, like an idiot, I invited her to spend Christmas with us, not realising that this woman was totally delusional.
Right.
So, like, that was a bit weird.
Any pre-show rituals you go through?
Yeah. I have a heavenly choir, and every night before I go on stage, even if it's a small show or a big show, I'm singing to 5 people or 3,000 or 4,000. I invite my heavenly choir to join me in the dressing room, and I name each one of them. It's not everybody that has a heavenly choir that has Johnny Cash in it, and Willie Nelson is still here. But my sister, my dad,
Yes.
my grandfather, and Patsy. And I invite them because before I go out on the stage, I'm terrified. Before I put my foot on the stage, I'm just terrified. Once I'm out there, I'm grand, but I'm so scared.
Why? Why are you so scared?
It's just fear, you know, fear that they won't like me, or I'll get it wrong, or I won't be any good. And then once I invite the choir to come out with me, I don't feel when I go out there that I'm by myself.
Right.
So that's a ritual I have every night.
And tell me, which are the most requested songs at your shows?
Woodcarver, Crazy. People ask for Every Time You Need a Friend, because I used to close my show with that. Reasons, which was my second country record, that Big Tom picked that for me. They would be. And then I get quite a few requests for Patsy Cline songs, like Walking After Midnight, I'd Fall to Pieces, that kind of thing.
And tell me your favourite place to visit?
In Ireland or anywhere?
Anywhere.
But you know what, I think, aren't we blessed with the country that we have? You know, I love Ireland.
That's true.
And yeah,
True,
and
yeah.
you know, going back years ago when we'd have been touring the length and breadth of Ireland, we never saw anything because, you know, you were going to the gig, you had to get there. No motorways, mobile phones or anything like that. Once you got there, you could be in the middle of a field with nobody around you waiting until 12 o'clock for the people to turn up
Right.
to fill the marquee.
Right.
And then you were leaving in the darkness, so you didn't see anything. So now I love Westport. I've started to go to Westport. I love Galway. Just coming to Blarney today, we're in this beautiful hotel, the Blarney Mills Hotel here in Blarney. I've never been here before, and thank you for suggesting it. It's beautiful. So Ireland, I think places in Ireland, Belfast, because my grandfather and grandmother were from there. But now at my age, I can take my time and go and enjoy it.
And enjoy it,
more.
yeah. And the best compliment you ever received?
Johnny Cash told me that I had one of the greatest gifts you can have, and I hope he was right, humility.
Right.
So to be told that you're humble and you have humility, I think that's a great compliment.
And the one thing that you're scared to do, is there anything that you're actually scared to do?
I'm scared.
Or frightened to do, or maybe not anxious to do?
Well, like I said, I'm always scared to step foot on the stage, but I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think, I honestly, people keep talking to me all the time because I live by the Atlantic about going into the water in the winter, you know, and swimming, and from my back window I can actually see them. There's a group of women in my age group, and they're swimming like in January, February, March, April, and they have me tortured, but I am terrified to do that. I can't. Number one, I'm not a good swimmer. I don't want to drown. And number two, cold. I hate the cold. The thought of getting into that water in January, February, March.
But maybe you might give it a shot sometime?
No. That's the only thing I can tell you. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, I doubt I'm not doing that, no.
So is there any way of persuading you maybe to do that? Is there any one thing that...
I suppose if somebody asked me to do it for a good charity, I'd do it, yeah.
Right, well, maybe that might be on the card. So,
Yeah.
the best gift you've ever received?
Was the spirit mantle from Johnny Cash, yeah.
And your favourite animal and why?
I love, as I said, my pets. And I would have to say animals, because the two dogs that we have, I never wanted to have them, you know, because I don't have time, and for the most part I'm not really a pet type person, or I thought I wasn't. But these two dogs, the love that they show my daughter with special needs, and the way they behave totally differently with her than they do with the rest of us. They're caring towards her, they're tolerant of her, and I've come to have a huge respect for Coco and
Any from Johnny's Restaurant and Takeaway, Wargasil, Cork, Ireland. We are delighted to sponsor the Sandy Kelly's Life and Time show.
And what one piece of advice were you given growing up by anybody that you actually followed?
My grandfather, when I was 3 years old, he sat me on his knee, and he was a very strict taskmaster when it came to show business. It was almost like being in the army. You didn't willy-nilly go on the stage or prepare for the stage. And he installed in me a discipline that I use today. And he would say to me, you never ever go on the stage and complain. You don't ever go on the stage and tell people about your problems, your aches, your pains, what happened to you the day before. They have paid their hard-earned money to be entertained.
Right.
And you don't get up there and start talking about what a bad day you've had,
Right.
or what's happened to you. And I've never done that.
If you weren't a country star, what career would you have followed?
As I said earlier on, I thought I wanted to be a teacher, but now that I've more mature, I realise that wouldn't have been for me, you know. So I think if I wasn't I think actually I'd like to have been an actress.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'd like, because in the show when I was a child, we were parts of plays, and as you know, 3 years ago I was meant to do a musical play with Michael English. I was playing the part of his mother, and I've told him lately by the time he does it I'll be his grandmother, but anyway.
Right.
So I think as an actress, I think, yeah.
Is there anything that you don't like about being in the spotlight?
I think because of where I come from, the background and my culture, I've learned to manage a regular life with the stage perfectly well. I don't live, you know, what people see on the stage in sequence or on a poster or on television or watching this now is Sandy Kelly, the singer. But I've always gone home and mopped my floors. I've always gone home and cooked the dinner. I've had the same worries as anybody else. And I've been able to wear two hats.
Right.
The hat of Sandy Kelly, the singer, and the hat of Philomena Ellis, the young girl, the mother, the wife, the whatever, and not bring one into the other. I think I've observed through the years that occasionally people start reading things about themselves and they start believing it, and they seem to forget that they actually paid somebody to write that down about them.
Right.
You know, that they're not really that wonderful.
Yeah.
We're all the same. And I really think I've managed to do that because of my background.
Right. And when you're not on the road, what are your hobbies?
I don't really have any hobbies. I love to go out with the dogs walking, not in this weather, but because I'm surrounded by 4 or 5 beaches to walk, I like to go out and walk. But I don't have a hobby as such, and I do like cooking. I love cooking.
We've come to the end of part 2 of our 3-show series of the life and times of Sandy Kelly. Don't forget to join us next week for the final episode.
I am Johnny Maney from Johnny's Restaurant and Takeaway, Wargassill, Cork, Ireland. We are delighted to sponsor the Sandy Kelly's Life and Time show.